Hey everyone, so to get this started, I know that everyone's going to be coming at this video with different knowledge of who I am and what I'm doing, so we're just going to start from the beginning. So my name is Dylan. I am from the United States, South Carolina. That's on the East Coast, if you're not familiar. If you are, in 2017, I think it was, I started working on a video game solo by myself. Not sure if that was a good decision. I think we'll find out. But yeah, when I first started on this project, I was working on it part time, like 3 days a week, 4 days a week, something like that, because I was working full time with rideshare driving, and that was interesting. If you're thinking about doing that as a job, it's a good side hustle. I will say that. But I've had some pretty interesting late night adventures with that. So it's definitely an interesting job. It'll keep you on your toes and make you a better driver. I think I'm a much better driver for the experience. So I always think there's something positive to be gained from something, no matter how negative it could be. Try to keep the realistic, positivity in line. So what I really wanted to touch in this video about was the progress of A Curse of Keys, which is the project that I've been working on for the last few years now. And so when I started this project, like I said, in 2017, I knew almost nothing about game development, and that was hard. So I had maybe 4 or 5 years of experience in 3D, and maybe 2 years of experience in Unreal Engine 4 with blueprint system as far as logic goes. And back then, Unreal Engine was a little rough to use, and I didn't have the experience to use it, competently. So, but at the time, I was working another job, and I had been doing 3D for so long, and it wasn't working out for me in terms of I was not seeing returns on the time that I had invested in it, and I had gotten fairly decent in it. Like I said, I've been doing it for years. This is something I've learned, that when you get into something, a lot of people expect to start making money in a few months, maybe 6 months, something like that, and that's a very unrealistic goal. Not on most things. It takes years, smaller parts of decades, to really start to see a return of value in the knowledge that you learn. But back to the point that I was making. So yeah, I was working in 3D, and it was just going nowhere. And I wanted more. I wanted to make some money, because in society we need money to survive, and all that good stuff. Not unique in that situation, but so I started exploring avenues for that. I thought about maybe web comics or web animations. At the time, I didn't know anything about animation, so I thought that would be a big hurdle. Initially, that was my mindset, was I was just going to get into animation, 3D animation, something like that. And I had been playing games all my life. I don't know why the decision didn't come to me sooner that I should work on video games or try and work on video games. But one day it did. I was playing through a game called Shadowgate 64, Trial of the Four Towers for the Nintendo 64, which is a sequel to Shadowgate, game for older PCs. Some of you guys may have heard of. It's a puzzle game, first person. You explore an old castle. It has elements of fantasy and mythology, some stuff like that in it. Pretty good game. Definitely should check it out if you want. But while I was playing through Shadowgate Trial of the Four Towers, I just kept thinking to myself, I was like, this is a fun game, and I like this experience, and it's simple. This is a simple experience, and I feel like I could create this. Given enough time and learning, I could make this, I felt like. So I did. I started on that. that sort of journey, and it was baby steps from everywhere because I had no coding experience, nothing like that, and one of the things that I wanted to be central to the plot of Recursive Keys were these magical portals that you step through, and then they're interdimensional. They take you from one place to another seamlessly. That was a very powerful visual to me that I had been toying around with a little bit in Unreal Engine, but I never really found a good example of working systems for that. So while I was playing through Shadowgate 64, Trial of the Four Towers, I happened to start picking up some Unity knowledge. I was learning to code a little bit in Unity, work with Unity's interface, learning the basics, how it works, its systems. And so yeah, I came across a video from Brackeys, who's one of the more popular Unity tutorial uploaders, about portals. And I watched this video, and immediately it clicked in my mind. I was like, this effect is not that hard to achieve. We can achieve this through code, and I can build upon that sort of structure, and build the narrative, build the design for the game around that effect. And that's how it really got started. So when I was first getting started, I had to learn everything from scratch, how to code in C# and how to use Unity. Like I said, I knew a little bit about 3D modeling, but that only really comes into play in the late game development cycle. In the early game development cycle, I learned that it's mostly code and framework and structure and the architecture of how things are going to work and what systems are going to be in place. That is one thing I can say, that I've gotten a lot of experience in game development over the last few years, just jumping into a project that was probably a little too big for me to work on, especially by myself. But I'm glad to have gotten that experience, and I think I'll get more in the coming days. But as the project went on, it started to become sort of more and more fluid, and I will say that you get to a point where the experience that you've gained and the things that you've learned start to accumulate to the point where game development does become easier as you go along. I think it takes a few years to get to that point, unfortunately, and if you'll recall earlier in the video, I was talking about how when I first started, I was just doing it part-time because I had another full-time job, and so that was a really big struggle early on, was that I had very little time to work on it, and I had very little energy to work on it, and that was something that I really struggled with. So fast forward to the start of the pandemic. Yeah. So when the pandemic started, I stopped driving with Uber because most of my clients are college students, and a lot of them just don't believe in COVID or have been getting sick in my hometown of Columbia, South Carolina, and it's a dangerous situation, so I don't feel safe driving. It's a hard decision to make between like putting you and your family at risk and making money to survive on. That was a difficult decision, but we were doing fine financially, and then ironically, one of my biggest forms of support, I've gotten very little support as I've been working on this project, but the little support that I have gotten has been a huge blessing, and I'm super grateful for that. It's like, it seems like even if the world is against you, if you just have one person on your side, that's more than enough. I cannot stress that enough. But my fiance, who's been supporting me for this project, and has huge love for me, and been supporting this project since the very beginning, actually, started bringing in a little more money from what they call like pandemic assistance or supplementary like income, something like that, and that was pretty much equivalent to what I was bringing in through my other job. So we made the decision that I was going to go from part-time working on this game to full-time, and that if anything happened, with Uber, that's one of the great benefits of rideshare driving. that you can stop and start whenever you want, and you can make the money whenever you want. I'm not endorsing that, but it's like, if the world falls apart and you need money tomorrow, you can go and you can get money tomorrow. Not a lot of stuff you can do that with. Not a lot of legal stuff anyway, but that's a whole nother topic. So yeah, we made that decision for me to start working full time on the game. That was, like I said, a recent decision. Last year, so 2019, around March or April, something like that. And at the time, I was basically rewriting the code for the game. So when I wrote the first batch of code, it was so atrocious and unusable, and it's a little bit embarrassing for me to say now, that when I went to actually go implement in the game, it just it fell apart. It was unusable. So it had to be rewritten better, not from scratch, but majorly rewritten, During that time, we came up with some better systems for the portals, and the loading system for the game is very intuitive because it only loads the scenes or the levels that you need on a portal by portal basis. The portals communicate to each other. I had to develop all that system by myself, which was not easy. A lot of these systems that I developed for the game, I spent weeks on because I couldn't find anything similar online, or any even good examples. I see a lot of people online talk about beginner's snippet code, and I couldn't find hardly any snippets for code that I needed, so I had to pretty much write it from scratch, and that was rough. That was very rough, especially when some of the things I was writing I didn't even necessarily understand how they work. And I feel like, looking back, that's something I will say is dangerous, to write code in some sort of depth where you're not really comfortable. Like if you're treading shallow water, maybe you shouldn't go into the deep end, But back to the topic at hand. So yeah, I started working full time on the game April 2019, and the game has been making major progress since then. It is still slow. And the predominant reason for that is that I'm, a solo developer, and I have other responsibilities in my life, like most other human beings on planet Earth. And so it's hard to divide up that time, especially, and it's hard to focus on getting work done every day, especially with me personally, because I struggle with ADHD. And as anybody with ADHD can tell you, it can be a pretty debilitating disease, or affliction, and it sort of encompasses everything I do. It's hard for me to get tasks started. They refer to that as task initiation, and there are barriers as far as time management, and things like that. So it really becomes a struggle when every day you have to, you have the work done, or the work to do, and every day you struggle to get it done, whether it's one thing or another, or lack of support, or lack of resources as well. In my case, this game was made on a shoestring budget, literally because I'm funding it by myself. And so when you're dealing with that every day, it is hard to make consistent progress. I will say that from personal experience. I don't know about everyone, but I definitely believe that my ADHD ties into that somewhat. So the progress has been consistent from, I would say, March 2019 till about April of last year. We were doing pretty good progress. December and January, from the transition of the new year, was particularly rough. I had a rough holidays. I don't know if everyone did, but for me they were really rough. Something that I've been trying to focus on more recently is my physical health, because my last day job, I actually gained a lot of weight, and I was very overweight to begin with, so that was not a good situation. I actually gained about, I don't know how much weight I gained while I was at the job, but I went up to 330 pounds, and I didn't realize I'd gained that much weight, and I was just blown away. And I was like, oh my God, you know, like I'm almost 350 pounds. I was just shocked. I was just shocked I had gained so much weight. And so one of the big things that I wanted to put in the forefront as far as like what was important to me was my health because, um, you know, I'm a big guy, but when you're that big, you know, it's like I don't want to, you know, keel over and die tomorrow. And you know, I'm getting on up there in years. I'm about to hit 30 years old in a few weeks. Actually, it'll be March. So unfortunately, I'm going to be hitting the big 3-0. But I think a lot of that with age too, it comes like you're worried about your health, and you know, it just became a goal for me to lose this weight. So for maybe 6 months in last year, I started really buckling down, get my health together, started exercising. Not every day, but again, with ADHD, it's hard to maintain that consistency. And you know, I've lost a lot of weight. I've done good on my weight loss goals. I'm down to about 270 now. I'm about to break down to 270, 260, and I'm really proud of that actually. It's a struggle. It's a struggle to lose weight. If you're struggling with that, you know what I'm going through. So, um, but back to the subject at hand. I apologize if I'm jumping around a lot. So yeah, over the course of December and January, things have just been particularly rough with the game development, with my weight loss goals. I think the winter is hard for everyone's weight loss goals. You know, if you lost weight during December, God bless you, basically, is what I'm saying. But yeah, holiday dinners, sweets, because, you know, our bodies naturally crave sweets during the winter. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm literally the only human being on the planet that craves sweets when it gets cold outside. Maybe not, you know. But, so yeah, everything's been extremely hard the last 2 months. December I had a little bit of progress made on A Curse of Keys, and then in January everything's been hard, much harder than usual for one reason or another. I've had a hard time getting any work done during the last month. I haven't lost any weight. I've been getting a little bit better about getting back on track of my weight loss goals. I did start exercising with a little bit of resistance band training. I got that for myself for a Christmas gift, and that has started to help me get back to my weight loss goals. So that's been a good thing. But as far as everything else, January's been a rough month. But as far as the state of the game is, where it's at right now, we are almost done with what's called the gameplay loop. So the gameplay loop consists of, in A Curse of Keys, it's a puzzle game, much like the game that I was telling you about that inspired Shadowgate 64. And so, you know, you walk around as first person, you solve puzzles, find items. One of the main things that I wanted to focus on with the game was a balance between the gameplay mechanisms of Shadowgate and Myst, because I've always been a big Myst fan. And it's hard to balance those two gameplay mechanics, in particular because I feel like Shadowgate is more punishing and more item-based, and Myst is far more, you know, continuous adventure. There's no punishment, there's no error, and then there is that sort of element of puzzle solving with intuition and memory recognizance, I guess is the word I'm trying to say. But balancing those two mechanics is hard. I've learned that when I first started this project, like I said, when I was looking at Shadowgate, I was like, this will be an easy game to make, and that was wrong. If you're trying to make a puzzle game for your first game, especially a big one, you're gonna have a bad time. Making puzzle games is very hard. That's my little PSA on making a puzzle game, especially for your first game. If you have no experience whatsoever, don't do it. You're gonna have a bad time. But we're closing towards the end of the gameplay loop. So we've designed all of the levels, all of the areas. They're blocked in. We've connected them all. All the major systems for the game are in place. almost all of the major puzzles are in place. We're missing about 4 or 5 puzzles out of close to 30. I think it's 27 or 28, something like that. So we're nearing the end of the gameplay loop, and that'll mark a major chunk of the game done because we'll, like I said, rid of all the major systems, put in all the scenes and levels, connected them all, implemented interactivity into the game, and implemented all those major puzzles, which are the major interactive element of the game. So after that, we are going to be taking a look at the portal system for the game and optimizing it a little bit, mostly for visuals, functionality. It's functionality-wise, it's perfect. Visuals, not so much. There's a little bit of clipping issue when you step through the portals, along with some, other stuff, some buggy stuff. When you make a game, you'll discover the glorious nature of bugs. But yeah, so in terms of what we have left to do, the portals, of course, and then we're going to start introducing some of the story content. So we've already contracted out for some voice acting for the game. I did that much earlier than I should have. Learning lessons to be learned. And so most of the story in the game is going to be narrative based, from a character named Alexander, and his mansion is the center place for the game, and you have to go around the mansion and solve puzzles. And most of the story in the game is actually going to come through the form of notes and letters that the Alexander character wrote to the main character in the game, and you discover these letters as you go. We're going to be implementing that, some inventory items, some more optional, interactive items, some light interactivity like examining things and looking at little things, tidbits and stuff like that, paintings on the wall, clocks, But once that's done, we have the intro sequence and the final sequence for the game to complete, and then that's it. We're on to what's called the polishing phase of the game, where we'll be creating the final geometry and meshes for the game, the textures that go with that. Then we're going to be doing lighting and a little bit of particle systems, stuff like that. Final effects, sound effects, music, which I already have the music for the game lined up. That's going to be really good. I've actually got somebody that's going to contract it out for free, really talented, Scott Buckley. I'm going to put a link to his SoundCloud in the description. He's pretty cool. But we've already discussed using some of his music for the project, and yeah, so once that's done, we're looking at the game being done in maybe 5-6 months, assuming I can get the work done. Like I said, one of the big struggles for me personally with that ADHD is like every day it's like a struggle to get things done with that task initiation. And it's hard. It's like everything is pushed. You have to push and push and push. And I've lived my whole life like that, and I think that's okay. I think that the struggles that we live through define the people that we become and make us better people. So I think that a life with struggle is a life worth living, in a strange sort of macabre sense. So one thing I do want to touch on that I think that will make a huge impact on, in terms of my productivity on the project, and in terms of the speed of completion of the project, which is pretty much forefront in my mind, is for the first time in almost a decade, or maybe more, if I can remember correctly, I am going to be getting on some new ADHD medication. I haven't been medicated for ADHD in a long time. I'm a little nervous about it, but I'm also extremely excited about the sheer efficacy that can be presented with, ADHD medication. As anybody with ADHD can attest, the medication is very, very life-changing in terms of efficiency and being able to get stuff done. So I'm really excited for that. That's going to be happening in the next few weeks or so, and I think that is going to be making a major shift into the project. I just wanted everyone to know that things are not necessarily so great, or they have not necessarily been so great over the last few weeks, but the project's outlook is very hopeful. I'm going to keep working on it, and I think that it's going to be not necessarily a life-changing game, but I think that it's going to be something that people are going to enjoy, and it's going to be an experience that people are going to remember. And I think that that's going to be something really powerful that people are going to remember in terms of originality and narrative for the game. So, but I think I've taken enough of your time. I think I've touched on everything I wanted to touch on. If you could check me out on Facebook and Twitter, give a like to my videos. I know that we don't get a lot of traction. The game is in the slightly early stages before we get all the pretty and polish on everything. But if you could share some of our links, share some of my videos, I would greatly appreciate it. And again, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next month for our next monthly update.